Hey everybody! Today, Rahdo runs through the Essen 2014 Spiel Convention Preview Super Show Extravaganza! Hooray! Okay, here we go. I did one of these last year. It was crazy long. I think, gosh, that one must have been 3 or 4 hours long. This year, I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try to be more to the point and not just waffle on and on and on, although I'm already doing it. So let's just jump right into it. Let's get over to the geek list I have made for this very special occasion. Rahdo runs through the Essen 2014 preview. Now, the links to this geek list is in the show notes down below if you would like to go on ahead and open it up and follow along or maybe even jump ahead. Spoilers, everything's right here. And I've got 66 games that I have listed in this geek list as ones that I am considering picking up at Essen 2014. Now, the reason this list exists, as it says right here, is predominantly because my Rahdo Runs Through voting block is going to be casting ballots this week to decide what games I'm actually going to be bringing back from the show. And so I made this geek list as a handy reference for them so they can see some art of what they look like and you'll read the descriptions nice and easy, and also as a reference for myself because in large part I'm making this run through for them so they can make more informed decisions. It's basically sorted from the ones I'm least interested, what you're about to see, Office 21, to number 66, the one I've absolutely gotta have. I will not rest until it is in my hands. And I think that's enough preamble. Let's start going. You know what? If I could do each of these in a minute or less, I'd be done in just over an hour. Wouldn't that be amazing? Let's see if that happens. You're right. Okay, so here we go, starting with number 66, Office 21, which, okay, I won't belabor the point. I don't really know much about this game. This is another one of those love letter inspired micro games coming from Japan, and TBH, the reason it's on my list is because I really like this art style. I like the really extreme pixel graphics kind of thing. I like the idea of it, running a office where you have a whole bunch of different people who have different powers. They're all cards in your hand. You play them at the right time, and the 21 seems to be a repeating thing. It kind of mixes the love letter with blackjack in some weird way. That actually sounds kind of cool. I really do need to read the rules on this. I haven't even done that yet, although they are available. But mostly it's here because I just think that art is really, really cute, and I'd like to give the game a try. That's Office 21. Moving on to number 65. Machikoro, the Harbor expansion. Now, as it happens, I've owned Machikoro now for about 6 months. And when Jen and I first played it, we thought it was really clever, really neat, but also not particularly satisfying as a two-player game at all. And in fact, I've got a fairly long thread about this on Board Game Geek in the main Machikoro forum if you want to go read why. But one of the things that came when I was posting on that thread and talking to the publisher of the game and other people about it and people who knew the game better than me, and I was asking my questions, well, this is what we didn't like. And several people pointed out, well, you know what? The Machikoro Plus expansion will probably fix most of your issues. And I'm like, really? Where can I get it? Oh, you can't get it now. It'll be available at Essen. I'm like, nah! So I've been waiting 6 months for this Harbor expansion, which was previously called Machikoro Plus. And I'm really hoping because, again, the core game is very, very neat. And the question is, will this expansion fix the two-player problems that Jen and I found in the base game? I don't know. Also, I'm a little bit worried about this because this is, I think, the only entry on this list that I did not take from W. Eric Martin's excellent Spiel 2014 preview mega list. And since it's not on there, I'm worried maybe it won't be there. But I hope it will because I was told 6 months ago that it should be at the show. So fingers crossed for Machikoro Harbor. Okie doke. Abrakawa? I just like saying that. That's not the reason it's on the list, but I mean, I do think it's actually very, very clever. This really strikes my fancy, and it's interesting. When I first saw it, I dismissed it out of hand because I saw one of the game features was memory. And memory is one of those keywords that makes me pretty much ignore a game. Like fighting is another keyword that makes me just ignore it. Or abstract almost always just makes me ignore it. And memory does it too. But I went back and I looked a bit more closely. And while this does obviously have a strong memory feature, I'm really intrigued by Abrakawa anyway because it looks like competitive Hanabi. And that is a very, very cool notion. Hanabi, that, One Spiel's Yards, the game where you actually hold all your cards away from you so you can't see what it is, and you can see your partner, your teammates' cards, and you're trying to give them subtle clues about what their cards are so they can play them correctly. In this game, I can't see, you can see in the picture, it's a bunch of dominoes, and I can't see what spells I've got to cast as I'm trying to cast spells, but my opponent can. And I'm trying to figure out what I have, and we're doing it competitively this time. Honestly, that's enough of a twist on Hanabi, because we know we love Hanabi, in spite of the memory element, that I'm really interested in this. Actually, to a certain extent, it looks kind of like a baby brother version, or a little sister version, of a Confusion, the espionage and deception of the Cold War, which is an awesome game. Jen and I both love this game. And this looks like a little kind of quick mini version of that, which maybe doesn't require quite so much setup. You can just get out and play it really quick, as opposed to sitting down for a big old long game of Confusion. So anyway, that's Abraca What. Looks very, very neat. And moving on. Okay. Okay. I'm going to mention both these at the same time because they're right here, right next to each other. They're practically a tie because these two titles frustrate the crap out of me. And there's actually a couple more that I could have put on the list. There's like a Provincia Romana, and there's a couple other games that I didn't even put on here because I don't know what's wrong with publishers. They're launching their games at Essen. They want us to be excited. They want us to seek them out. And yet they give us no information about these games at all. Stauffer Dynasty and Orongo are two games that I know nothing about. They haven't released the rules. They haven't released any pictures of it. All they've released is these two little paragraphs that I've put here that pretty much tell you nothing. Okay, Stauffer Dynasty is an auction game. Orongo has something to do with building the Maori statues on Easter Island. That's all I know. And quite frankly, that's not enough information for me to put them on the list. That's why some of the other games that were also, the publishers just don't want you to know anything about their game. They're not trying to actively sell me and get me excited. These ones I left on the list because there's one thing I know about them. Stauffer Dynasty is from, what's his name? Andreas Stedding, I believe, who is a good designer. He's made, we love, what is it? Forenza. And we think Nuremberg is actually pretty cool too. And Hansa Teutonica, another game of his, is very well respected. And we thought it was a terrible two-player game. I'll come back to that later. But so Andreas has done enough cool games that just his name on the box draws my attention. And that's why this is on here. And that's the only reason. Same is true for Orongo because it is from the good doctor Rainer Knizia, kind of the father of modern board games. This is his latest game. The subject matter I like. We actually have another game that does the same thing, Rapa Nui, which is an excellent, excellent game about building the Maui statues. Here's another one, only on this list because of Reiner and because Ravensburger and Z-Man, and I forget who else is publishing Stauffer Dynasty. There's somebody else publishing it too in Europe. These publishers, they want to keep it a secret. Why? I don't know. That's why they're way up high here in the 60s. But moving on, I spent too much time on them considering I know nothing about these games. But again, the designer pedigree is strong with these. I just wish they would have told me something more about it so I'd have more to talk about right now. Anyway, okay, moving on to Trains Rising Sun. Now, actually, Trains is an awesome, awesome deck builder game that fuses very directly Dominion. It lifts several cards that could be just taken directly, word for word, out of Dominion, and adds a territory control route expansion game by putting a map on the board as well. And that was an excellent, excellent expansion. Love the base game. And the only reason this isn't higher is because, well, I'm kind of on the fence about it. When I originally got Trains, it was the very, very limited edition Japanese print. And when I got it, I had no idea. No one knew that AEG was going to pick it up. And so I got it because I thought that was the only way I was going to be able to play it. And then AEG picked it up, changed all the card backs so that the two games were completely incompatible. I'm like, oh, crap, well, I'll never be able to get expansions now. So last year at Essen, I found somebody who really wanted to buy my extremely limited edition Japanese Trains. And I had intended to turn right around and flip that money to buy the AEG version, and I never did. And it's a year later, and I still don't have it. So the only thing keeping Trains Rising Sun from being higher on the list is for me to get this game. it cost me twice as much because I'd have to buy the core game again and the expansion. Now that said, the core game is great, and I love the fact that this expansion is adding new maps. Specifically, as it says right there, 2 of the maps are designed for 2-player games, which, if anything, that is a valid complaint about the base game. That the boards are obviously designed for more than 2, and they're a bit wide open. I mean, Jen and I had actually played them, folding them in half, so you only had access to half the map. Now there's maps devoted to 2-player, which makes this even more attractive, plus a bunch of new cards. So anyway, that's Trains Rising Sun. I'm just a little bit nervous because it's going to be expensive for me to commit to this. Okay, and and I always wonder, gosh, I already am, I've spent so much on Dominion. I spent a lot on Thunderstone. Do I really want to make another huge commitment to another deck builder, particularly since the base mechanisms are so close to Dominion? Chances are, yeah, I probably will. But anyway, moving on to The Convicted. Now this actually, it was on, I don't remember if it was on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. It was crowdfunded earlier this year, and pretty successfully. And in fact, the backers of it have already gotten their copies of the game. This is out there in the wild. It's a what do you call it? A tower defense game. Seems very, very reminiscent of, remember that old classic Ford and Ricci game from the 80s, The Horde? Published by 3DO. Jen and I love that game. To this day, we still quote it. Here I am, said the dragon as he would come in and save the day when your town is under attack. And this is the same basic thing. We have a town. We're building it up. Every round, we start out trying to expand it and make it stronger and more profitable and stuff like that. And then we run out of time, and the nighttime comes, and the horde appears. That's what this is all about. I love the idea of it. The only thing that gives me pause about this game, also, it's gorgeous. I mean, the components for it look absolutely stunningly beautiful. The only thing that gives me pause about The Convicted is it's been in the hands of backers for quite a while, and there's been no buzz. Nobody's actually done a review of it. Nobody's really said much of anything, and that gives me a little bit of pause. Maybe it wasn't as good as I'd hoped it was going to be. I don't know. You'd think people would just be raving about it and talking about it and shouting about it from the rooftops, but it seems like all quiet on the Convicted front, and that's why I'm a little bit nervous, and that's why Convicted I think we're at 59 now? Anyway, let's continue. Doodle City. This just looks adorable, and sometimes it's nice to have a fun, adorable game around. Basically, the thing that really drew me to it more than anything else is the fact that this is one of those games where you use a dry erase marker and write on your board. In this case, you roll dice that gives you the opportunity to claim certain spots on your. It's almost kind of like a little bingo chart, but instead of a bunch of letters, it's a layout of a city with different buildings and activities and stuff like that. And when you roll the dice, that lets you choose between rows and columns to be able to claim certain spots on your own personal little city bingo card. But you roll multiple dice, so you have on every round, everybody has access to the same dice. You roll the dice, everybody has access, and everybody has to choose on their own card what they're going to claim. So, no one really can claim, hey, yeah, the dice didn't go my way. They really kind of screwed me, because everybody's like working from the same base dice, which is very, very cool. And I love the notion of drawing. And you can see in the picture that often you will have to try and claim spaces, and you'll have to decide how the road you're going to draw is applied before you really know where else you're going to get to go. And while it says here that this is a quick family game of city building, I have read that this game is surprisingly deep, and it's surprisingly tense and challenging. So I'm really excited about Doodle City. Okay. Plus, we just like to draw on our games. It's just fun. Okay, Dragon Slayer. This is another very, very light, simple game. Looks like it has beautiful custom dice components. And this is hell, they come right out and say it. It's a great push your luck game, a PYL. I didn't even know that was an acronym, but this is a PYL game, along the lines of zombie dice and Martian dice and monsters and maidens. All these games are just very, very simple. You roll dice repeatedly, push your luck, hope for the best thing, hope not to bust. Score the most points. Very, very simple, very straightforward. The twist this one offers is, while you're playing, your opponents can issue challenges to you that then suddenly become new targets you have to hit while you're still pushing your luck. And that sounds very, very cool. I mean, that kind of addresses the core issue of these sort of push your luck games, is that when it's not your turn, there's nothing you can do. You just have to wait. You just sit back and, check your phone while everybody else is rolling. Here, you're still very much involved because you can see which way their dice are rolling, and you can issue challenges to them. I think you have a limited amount, because what does it say? It says, What order do you go? Or what order do you go after dragons? When do you stop? When do you challenge? Who do you challenge? How do you get others not to challenge you? So everybody's involved the whole time, and that's great. That sounds like a wonderful addition to core push your luck gameplay, like what you see in Zombie Dice. My only concern about this is I wonder how well it plays with two, because they go right out there and say, who do you challenge? In a two-player game, there's only one other player you can challenge, so maybe some of the decision-making is kind of lost, which would be unfortunate, because at its core, this looks like a lovely little push-your-luck game, Dragon Slayer. Alrighty, Life Manager. Now, there's almost nothing known about this. All there is this two little paragraphs. What is it? It's literally 4 sentences. 5 sentences. 5 sentences is all that's known about this game, and a box cover that has some nice looking cartoony art. The reason it's on this list at number, we started 60, so we're at 56 now, at number 56 is because of the theme. I love, and Jen, I know, loves the theme of a game where your primary role, your primary responsibility is helping people, trying to make their lives better. It's why we loved CV. It's why we loved Worker Placement, which is a worker placement game about placing workers to place workers in jobs. I mean, we love that notion. It's so great to find games where the core theme is not kill or destroy or, get more glory for me. It's so nice that it can be altruistic. It's all about helping other people. Now, you could have the argument that there is no such thing as altruism. Well, I'm only helping them because it gets me points, so I win the game, so it's still all about me. But still, we don't care. We love games where we actually get to help people and make their lives better, and that's why I'm interested in Life Manager. Hopefully, it's a good game. I have no idea. All right, because again, this is another game that the publisher just is not putting that information out there. Essen's only a week and a half away. Where's the info? Start building buzz for your game. Get people excited. Come on. Alrighty. Moving on to Florenza, the card game. Now, I did a run-through for Florenza, the card game, last year, and liked it a lot. Thought it was a great game. It's definitely a keeper. Jen and I very much enjoy it. And love the idea of having more content, more things that we can pursue. I mean, heck, my only complaint about the core game was that as a two-player game, it was a little loose. Maybe this has the opportunity to kind of tighten the two-player game up. That would be great. So, all pluses. It should be rated higher on my list. Here's the problem. It's in the name. It's right there on the box cover. Florenza, the card game. War and Religion expansion. And if there are two topics that Jen dislikes less than war and religion in her board and card games, I don't know what they are. It's like they went out of their way to make the expansion that Jen would hate, solely based on thematic reasoning. And so, we know it's a good game. This is probably going to be a wonderful expansion that really improves the game, but it brings into what was just a lovely little game about making masterworks of art, employing architects and, building something, and now there's war and religion. Well, time will tell what that brings to the game. We know what it brings in real life. Okay, moving on. Try not to get too political here. It's funny. I didn't put it on the list. I was really tempted to put Lap Dance, which is a hugely controversial game. And in the end, I didn't, primarily because I've had so many, flame wars about the recent run-throughs I've done. I didn't want to have another one, and here I am talking about Lap Dance again. I almost put Lap Dance on the list, and I asked Jen, would you be interested in playing? And she said, yeah, I'd much rather play a game about strip clubs than a game about war or killing. And so, I don't know, what does that say? The fact that I've got here a game about, an expansion about war, and I didn't put Lap Dance on. You know what? Lap Dance is on this list. It's an honorary member. Let's say it's right after this because Jen prefers love, not war. As much as she loves this base game, assume that the next one on the list is, I'm going to add it after the fact, Lap Dance. Because that's a game, sure, it's about selling sex. It's about titillation and all that stuff. But if it's a game full of consenting adults who, are responsible and in charge of, their own bodies and all that, we have no problem with that at all. And so, all right, that got a little controversial there. And I was going to not be controversial, and I just went and did it anyway. But anyway, so let's move on to something less controversial, Dragon Run. Another very simple little push your luck dice game, or actually this one I think is more push your luck drawing cards. Kind of reminiscent of, Oh, what's that game? Aztec something or other. Ink and Gold. Ink and Gold. How far will you go? This one, there's a dragon's horde. We're trying to steal stuff. How much more stuff do we steal before he wakes up and, charbroils all of us? And when do we run away? Seems like, I don't know if the game's good or not. Seems like a pretty straightforward game. I'll be honest. The reason this game is on here is because I can be shallow. I can be turned by a pretty face, or in the case of this game, I can be turned by pretty art. The artist on this game, I don't know his name. Sorry, I should. He's one of the best artists, maybe arguably the best artist working in board games today. What is his name? That's just not fair. I'm going to look it up. Let's see here. Yeah, Vincent Dutrait. Which I'm sure is pronounced Dutoit or something like that in French, because he's French. I mean, look at him. He seems like a very nice man. And the art he's done, Lewis and Clark, is gorgeous. The card-like games are gorgeous. Augustus is gorgeous. Let's sort by rank here. What are his biggest games? Pathfinder, well, he's done some of the art. Some of the art on there is gorgeous. Tikal 2, Mundus Novus, Chak, Chitano. Yeah, he's an incredible artist, and it's really his art that put this on the list. And like I said earlier, I like push your luck games. Hopefully this is a good one, but it's mostly on the list because it's so pretty, so pretty. Alrighty, moving on to Akrotiri. Now, this is on the list in large part because, again, designer pedigree. But unlike those earlier designer pedigree ones where I know nothing about the game, this one I actually know about the game, and the game sounds cool too. It's from the designers of Belfort, which was a wonderful game. It's a design duo. They're pretty sharp. They seem like they know what they're doing. And this is a tile-laying game, which unfortunately has pickup and delivery. I mean, you lay the tiles, and you can see from this picture here, you're building the chain of islands, the Greek Isle. And it's set in classical Greek times, so you're basically building, the Greek Isle peninsulas and all that stuff down there. And you are basically creating places where you can pick up goods and deliver them to other islands. So there is a pick up and deliver game. That's not my favorite part about this game. And in fact, I'm never a big fan. We're very rarely do we enjoy pick up and deliver. Hopefully this one will work. You can see it's got the cute little boat where you carry the stuff around. What's interesting about this game is as you're laying the tiles, everybody has their own secret map that they are trying to make the layout of the board that everybody shares match their own secret goal. And we love secret goals. That's always a lot of fun. So, hoping secret goals plus pick up and deliver from the designers of Belfort will equal a cool game, and that's why Akrotiri is on the list. Okay, patch history. My greatest regret from Essen 2013. I could have picked up one of I think there were like 50 copies of this sold last year at Essen. And, so there's very few copies of this game in the world. Maybe it was 100. It was not very many. And I was at Essen last year, and I could have had this. It would have required me standing in line for probably 20 or 30 minutes. And I thought about it and said, no, I will not. It is just a game. How good could it be? Is it really worth standing in line for 30 minutes? No, and I walked away. And ever since then, I have regretted that fateful decision because I've had to go for a year without this game. And I so love the idea. I love the idea of it last year, too. And if I just, put on my headphones and listen to a podcast for half an hour, I could have had it all this time. It's basically a notion where you have a bunch of tiles that come in various sizes and shapes, and you're laying them. They represent leaders and technological advancements and great wonders of the world, and you're laying them to your play area and creating, you can see in this picture, kind of a patchwork quilt of elements that defines what your civilization is all about. And I just think that is so clever. I love the tactile nature of building and arranging, that it becomes this kind of Rubik's Cube puzzle of civilization. Love the idea of it. I am a bit nervous that apparently it's a fairly long game, as Civilization games often are, so that gives me some pause. And I also worry about, like most Civilization games, this includes war. And honestly, that's almost enough for me to dismiss it out of hand, but I'm fingers crossing that the core patchwork mechanism of the game will overcome our aversion to the war elements. We'll see, but this year I'm definitely hoping to pick up a copy of Patchwork or Patch History, provided that the voters vote that way. Voters, this is all on you. I hope you're paying attention. I hope you make some interesting choices for what I'm going to be picking up. All right, next up, Slavinka. This is probably my most embarrassing game on the list. I have to admit, I own Slavinka. I've had it ever since it came out, I think a couple of years ago. gosh, maybe even 3 years ago. And I've never played it. I am so sorry, designer and publisher of Slavinka. It's right there on my shelf, and I've always meant to, and I've just never gotten around to it. I mean, it's been a busy few years in board gaming. Sorry, but now there is an expansion / standalone version of the game, and the reason I put this on the list and put it, kind of here in the mids, I gave it a fairly decent rating, is because, well, one, I know I liked Slavinka enough to get it in the first place. Even though I've never played it, and I barely remember what it is. It's basically a game where you can see, here's some cards. You lay down, every time you play, a bunch of cards that represent different landscapes where bad guys are. You have a card of hands that represent your adventurers, and you use those adventurers in your hand to travel to the bad guy locations and defeat them to get treasures, and it's a big race game. And I like everything about that. I've just never played it. But apparently, it must have been good enough to warrant the time and expense and risk, financial risk, of putting out a sequel / standalone game. So that's why I'm excited about the sequel. And heck, if I end up picking this up, obviously I'll end up doing a run-through that covers both the base and the expansion at once. So again, we'll see what the voters think with Slavinka Equinox. Alrighty. Planes from designer David Short. This is another game that's on here, I think, primarily because of the designer pedigree. We love, where is it? Ground Floor, right up there. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'm pointing to it. Wonderful, wonderful, heavy, heavy business simulation, Euro-style game. And so, I mean, David Short, as soon as we played that, he went on my list of designers that I will be following them and seeing, what's coming in the future. And so, and now this is his big follow-up. This is his sophomore effort. He's done some little, like he did Yardmaster Express, which was excellent. So he's done some little things, but this is his big follow-up. It's part of AEG's, I guess, transportation line of games, because even though this has nothing in common with Trains, which I talked about earlier, it uses the same font. It's obviously intended to be kind of a spiritual successor. This one's Planes. But this is not about building a transportation network, which is what Trains is about. This is about you playing a group of travelers. Let's just say it's a family. And you've got to make it to your boarding gate on time or you'll miss your flight. That's what the entire game is about. And honestly, I love the idea of that. It just sounds so simple and so evocative. Obviously, I've been there plenty of times myself. And, it just seems like it has the potential to really, you can really put yourself in there. I mean, you can see this picture of the board. I really like the graphic design of this as well. It's clearly a race game with you and your little cubes representing your family and the other players representing their family and a whole bunch of, other people who just get in the way. You have to fight through the crowds. You got to make sure you get some food so you don't starve on the plane. You got to make sure you hit the restroom before, and you got to get everybody together because they can all get split up and you don't want to lose your luggage and try to get to the plane. Now, for some people, what I just described might sound so stressful it's giving them hives just thinking about it. But I think it sounds like a lot of fun. And so I'm very, very interested. And like I said, in large part because it's from designer David Short, and his last game was fantastic. Or his last two games I played were fantastic. So that is Planes. I have said before I would mention Hansa Teutonica again, and here we go. Now, we played Hansa Teutonica a long time ago when it first came out, and it's a brilliant game. All about, transporting goods around, and laying claim to transportation routes and all that stuff. Great game. The original was terrible as a two-player game, though, because the two-player variant that came with the base game was this really weird thing where players were kind of shackled to each other and all kinds of strangeness that just did not work. And so while we played it and we said, wow, this is clearly a brilliant game, but oh my gosh, what a terrible. I mean, I don't say that lightly. It was really, in our experience, in our opinion, not a very good two-player game at all. So that's why I'm excited about this, because maybe this will redeem it for us. Because of course, Jen and I, we only play games two players. We never get to play with more. So now we get to experience the brilliance of Hansa Teutonica on a British map, which we love because, especially Jen, she is so in love. She cannot wait. I mean, Malta is great, but we will probably grow old and die in England. That's what's going to happen, and because she loves it there so much. So that immediately draws us in more, by having the Ye Old England map, which is great. But more importantly, this thing introduces completely new two-player rules that make a lot more sense from what I've read. They are just about having a dummy player who blocks spaces and tightens the board up, what you would expect to happen. And it sounds like it'll work, and I'm super stoked to try out Although getting this means, of course, we'll have to get another copy of Hounds of Teutonica. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll see what the voters think. But moving on to Colt Express. Wow, I'm at 30 minutes, and I haven't even made it past the first page. Oh, I'm so slow. So slow. Okay, well, let's keep going. Stop waffling. Okay, this is a train robbery game. As you can see, the core thing about it that's so neat is you actually build out of cardboard a three-dimensional train. And not only a train, but you build like props, like cactuses and desert buttes and stuff like that. Oh, it's so cute. Love the idea of it. I'm sure it'll just look great on the table. And what else I love about it is a programming game where, I've got my little, train robber, and, he could run around, from car to car, or he could climb up onto the roof and jump from rooftop to rooftop, and he can, fight the sheriff who's guarding the train and all this stuff, and whoever gets the most money and gets out alive wins, so it's pretty straightforward stuff. But everybody chooses all the actions they're going to do in a round at the same time and then reveals them one by one. Kind of, so everybody's programming in secret, and then we see how well things work. Like Robo Rally. Love that. Love, love, love it. Here's what I'm worried about. It is obviously, by its very nature, a very, very aggressive in-your-face game. Heck, there are bonus points to be had for being the player who shoots more bullets than anybody else, if I recall correctly. There's a $1,000 braggart bonus, whoever bagged, whoever fired the most bullets. So this game is all about getting in the face of your opponents. And I don't know, it seems so cool, and I love the programming so much, I think we might be willing to put it aside. I also, Jen has a big, big problem with guns, but it looks like this is very lighthearted and silly. I don't think anybody probably ever gets killed. Everybody's just shooting to wound. So it seems very, Briscoe County Jr. in terms of its thematic heaviness. It seems very light and silly. My other worry is, I've read the rules, and as a two-player game, you have to every player basically controls a team of two robbers. Although your robbers can shoot each other as well. So sometimes that works. Like actually, I just ran through Rampage the other day. It worked brilliantly there. Absolutely makes the game a great two-player game. So I'm hoping it works here as well. But there's still some iffy things about Colt Express. That's why it's not higher, even though I love the 3D train that you build in cardboard. Murano. Okay, Jen and I, we've been to Murano in real life. The Venetian island devoted to glass building, one of the most famous meccas of glass blowing in the world. Jen was so excited to go there in real life because she's a glass maker herself. And she was so disappointed when she got there because, it seems like for the most part today, modern Murano is all about, just selling. It's a tourist trap. It's just all about selling, simple touristy style glass. It didn't really have the glass heart and soul that Jen was hoping for, and so she was hugely disappointed. And granted, maybe she just didn't look down the right alleys to find the old masters doing it the old way or something like that, and it just but. Actually, she ended up liking, I think it was the sister island, Durano, which we absolutely loved. It was a very charming island and stuff like that. But anyway. The reason this is on the list is because hopefully this will make up for Jen, because this is Murano at its glory. During the Renaissance, when it was making a name for itself as the preeminent glass-blowing destination in the world. And we are here to, work with the artisans to make beautiful pieces of glass and all that. We love the setting. Jen, of course, loves the overall theme. It's from the designers of The Village, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Wish we still had it. There's a whole side story. Don't need to go into it now. So everything's lining up. Murano could be a very, very nice game. Okay, Orleans, or Orleans, or I'm not sure how to pronounce it because it's got the little accent there. I'll just go with Orleans, like New Orleans. Okay, this is, thankfully, unlike those earlier games I was complaining about, this attracts me. I look at the board and I can see this is a Euro-style game with, goods, conversion and creation, all that stuff, all the type of stuff we like. And these guys had the smarts to actually put their manual online so I could read it. And when I read it, it turns out, it's really weird. They don't really talk about this anywhere in the description. This is another example of the new burgeoning bag builder games. Taking the idea of deck builders, which is all about every round you get new cards and you add them to your deck and you shuffle and you never know what you're going to draw, typified by Dominion or popularized by Dominion. This does the same thing where you're getting a bunch of chits that represent different craftspeople and townsfolk that could help you, and you throw them all in a bag, and every turn you draw from the bag random chits, and you've stuffed the bag with, like certain percentages of X, Y, or Z, and you're hoping to get what you get. But whatever you get, these are the people who can help you this turn. And I love that idea. I've loved that idea in every game so far that's done it. And there's a few I know of, although the only one I can think of is Hyperborea. And it seems like every other game that does this makes it a war game, makes it an area control, let's fight each other, and let's pull soldiers out of that bag. This is a game that has no fighting. Hooray! This is about building and creating and solving problems. And so that's why very, very stoked about this game. Really, really excited about it. Orleans. Corgans. This is from the designers of, what was the name of that game? A time travel game that just completely did us in. I can't think of the name of it. Let's just go ahead and look. It'll only take a second. What the heck? I'm already ruined for time anyway. From the designers, let's see. Arnau Urban and what did they do? Chronos with a K. Chronos was a brilliant game, but too brilliant for us. It basically made our heads melt. And we wanted to love it because we love time travel. But anyway, here they are with another game. It looks a bit lighter, but it still looks like these designers have made something that gives you a lot to think about. In this one, it's all about finding the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. We are Korrigans, which is apparently some, they're like leprechauns and pixies and fairies, but just one you never heard of called Korrigan. At least I'd never heard of them. And we are a tribe of Korrigans spreading all over this land. And as the game goes on, more and more pieces get put on the land that start to reveal where the final rainbow will appear. Through a process of elimination. It can't appear over on this row. It can't appear in this column anymore. Now it can't appear in this column. And throughout the game, we are kind of triangulating down to where the pot of gold will appear. And at the same time, we're moving our Korrigans around to try to get into the right position to get it. This is a very, very similar thing to games like Tobago, which Jen and I love, and Cafe Melange, which Jen and I love. And so this is another game that has that kind of reverse deduction thing, but I suspect this one will probably be a bit heavier based on the designer's pedigree, and that's why Korrigans made the list. Alrighty, almost done with the first page. Hey, cool. Okay, oh my gosh, this is so long. Deus. I'm worried about this game. Well, okay, here's what I like about this game. I love games where you have a hand of cards in your hand and you can use them for multiple things. You can play them for whatever they say, or you can discard them to do something else. That's the case in this game. You play them to build up your civilization because they represent different facets of your civilization, or you discard them as sacrifices to the gods to give you different benefits. Love that. It always works. And here's the bigger thing. This is from one of the designers of Trois and Tournay, which I know I'm not saying correct, or I forget how it's said, but Trois is both in Jen's and my top 10 games of all time. We love that game so much. So anytime any of the guys who worked on that make a new game, we are there with bells on. Deus, this would be higher, except I am worried. It does have area control. It probably does have some fighting. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but the pedigree of the designer, plus the beautiful board design looks absolutely gorgeous, plus my favorite game mechanism in the game world, a hand of cards where the cards have multiple uses, puts it on the list very, very strongly. Deus. Artificium. Okay, here's the reason this one's on the list. It's another one of our favorites, which we see very rarely. It was in Helvetia. It's probably the best game we have right now that does this notion of goods creation, where basically, okay, I get this good and I get this good and I can make it into this. And you can actually see in the picture, you have this kind of flow chart of how you're trying to create different goods and create assembly lines. That's what you do in this game. You create assembly lines to try to score points by converting goods into other goods. It's excellent to that style of gameplay. We like it every time we ever experience it. We loved it in last year's Craftsman. Craftsman turned out to be too heavy for us. So always looking for it. Love that kind of gameplay. This looks like a really, really solid game. Very, very simple. Just some cards and the cubes you need to generate those goods. Could be great. Artificium. All right. Cargo Train. Now this one is from, actually I just mentioned Craftsman. This is from the designer of Craftsman, which again, we played it last year. I've done a run through. Hugely admired that game. It was a brilliant design, but it was too heavy. This looks like that design. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure it's the designer, Christoph something or other. Let's see. Let me just double check it here. Is it from? Yes, it is. Christoph Matsuchik. Sorry if I got your name there wrong, Christoph. I'm sure I did. This is another game from him, and it looks like it's simpler. I know he's a good designer because Craftsman was brilliantly designed, and this looks like it's not quite so heavy. You can see a randomly generated train track that's circular gets created by laying out cards with tunnels and destinations, and this is a pick up and deliver game, as most train games are. But it's another game where you are doing kind of simultaneous programming of where you're going to move your train around on this circular track and how you're going to use those tunnels as basically teleporters to zip around, and where are you going to get in and pick up the stuff before somebody else does, because everybody's programming in secret and then we all reveal. As I mentioned earlier, I love that. The designer has proven he's very, very good. This seems like it's right up our alley, Cargo Train. And then here's the other one from Christoph, Urban Panic. Jen and I love SimCity inspired building town type simulations. This is another one, and we love Suburbia, we love Urban Sprawl. There are so many of these games we love. Here is yet another one. The thing that really, well, one, this is interesting because I know the designer is very smart. This one, and I know he makes a good heavy game. Maybe this is going to be a really heavy game, hopefully not too heavy. I've looked through the rules. It seems like I was able to grok it, so I'm excited about it. But I think the thing I like about this one more than anything else, unlike a lot of these games where the townsfolk, the people you're building the town for, are really just kind of like a scoring mechanism. They're really not part of the simulation. Here, they are the heart of the simulation. Everything you do in this game is for those townspeople and improving their lives. And if you remember back to when earlier in this video, and I was going on about how excited I am about games where you improve people's life, hey, a city building game where we do everything to improve the lives of our citizens. Awesome. Urban Panic. Alrighty. Oh, and hey, you know what? That's the end of the first page. Now, I think I'm going to stop here. I got 3 pages to go through. This was the first one, 40 minutes. All right, so you can expect the next one will be 40 minutes. The next one after that will probably be 30 minutes. Oh, sorry this is so long. I just can't go fast. But you can go ahead and hit the button that's on screen, probably over there or maybe over there. I don't know where it is, to go to the second or the third half if you just want to cut right to the end. Or you can follow the links in the show notes. And otherwise, I'll give you 5 seconds to do that. Talk to you soon, everybody. See you on page 2 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.